Yeah, hear me out on this one. I know it's going to ruffle some feathers, but that's okay. It'll make sense by the time I finish. I hope. By the way, there may be some spoilers for the latest Star Wars episodes of Andor Season 2 following this brief message. But there will definitely be some spoilers for Rogue One, though. Yes. I know. Rogue One has been out nearly 9 years. It's going to be okay, my little graham crackers of love. Okay, what exactly am I talking about? Let's just say Tony Gilroy. Yes, Tony Gilroy is what's going on. With his way of making Star Wars, we have to wonder, how is he doing this? I mean, how is he able to make such a great Star Wars story that can resonate with a large portion of the Star Wars fandom? I can answer that in one simple way. He isn't a Star Wars fan like we are. Normally, one would think that's a bad thing, and a lot of times it is. Such was the case for J.J. Abrams and the Star Trek franchise, and we see how that worked out for him and the Star Trek fandom. Whoa, buddy, are you talking about Star Trek on a Star Wars channel? I sure am, because it's relevant. And yes, I said that Tony Gilroy has figured out the secret formula for Star Wars by not being a fan. Nor does he claim to be. And I will elaborate on that. Let's get this next bit out of the way really quickly. And I mean that, quickly. YouTube doesn't like it when I don't ask for subscribers, so here you go.
There's an old saying, man who goes to sleep with itchy ass wakes up with pink eye. I'm not sure how that pertains to Star Wars, but I'm sure it fits in with it somewhere. But are you tired of being hated on because you like Star Wars? You're not alone. This channel's dedicated to our love for the Star Wars empire. By subscribing, you're telling goofy haters that you don't care that they can't enjoy Star Wars, that your love for it will bring forward happiness in your life that can only be rivaled by bourbon. Yeah, I said bourbon. But subscribe now and be happy that you have done so.
And how did that sit with you? Yeah, I know, I'm kind of special. Oh well, just laugh and move on. No reason to be angry, like an angry nerd all the time. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, back to what I was saying. Tony Gilroy. Yes, he admitted he isn't a Star Wars super nerd. I mean, super fan. Star Wars fan. Whatever. He likes the franchise well enough, but he isn't in love with it like we are. He enjoys making Star Wars to a point, even though he did hope Andor Season 2 would get shut down at some point because it took a lot out of him, but it didn't. So, ha! But this guy has figured it out. By not being a Star Wars super nerd, he was able to concentrate on the actual story. It allowed him not to think about the things that we would think of if we were making Andor and writing Rogue One, as well as taking over the reshoots for Rogue One. Tony Gilroy isn't trying to put so much fan service in it that it takes away from the story that's building. Sure, there are Easter eggs and some fan service in the backgrounds of the scenes, but there isn't a whole lot of, whoa, this character showed up, or something like Luke Skywalker jumping in like some deus ex machina to save characters from a hopeless situation. I like Luke Skywalker well enough, I guess. I just thought it was a little over the top. Let the freaking Mandalorians figure it out for themselves. They are warriors. But I suppose it worked. A lot of fans loved it. I didn't hate it. I was just kind of along for the ride during that part. Anyway, Tony Gilroy seems to have had more freedom and less restrictions when creating Rogue One and the entire Andor series. A lot of that is attributed to the fact that 90% of the characters are new, and the older characters that are present didn't have a lot of backstory, if any. Of course, we knew Mon Mothma went into exile after the Gorman massacre, and she became a strong leader in the rebellion. But that's about it. We didn't know anything about Chandrillan customs, Mon Mothma's family, or any of that. And I'm talking about canon, guys, the new canon, not the expanded universe, or Legends as it's now called. I always thought of her as married to the rebellion when the slate was wiped clean, but now she is a fully fleshed out character again, much like Maul became when the Clone Wars came out. Let's just see where Tony Gilroy takes her arc. other than leading the rebellion, of course. But Tony Gilroy has been very careful about staying away from legacy characters that we all know so well, except Darth Vader. He really killed it with that hallway scene. Literally. Let me clarify. He killed it with the writing of the hallway scene. I can't remember if that was part of the reshoots. Someone help me out with that if you don't mind. Drop a comment about it. Back to the point. Tony Gilroy has not bogged us down with unnecessary fan service, Easter eggs, and cameos. But Star Wars G. Actually, Luthen Rail's shop is full of Easter eggs. It's an antique shop full of antiquities. It has rare things like Jedi artifacts, Sith holocrons, Sith armor, Wookiee helmets, and such and such. It has a place there, and it isn't a bad thing that some blokes were watching pod racing on their Fallout-style TV. It fit the scene. None of it has been random at all, and that's what we get with a lot of Star Wars shows that are made by fans. Random Easter eggs that don't really feel like they belong. But then we have to look at what those shows and movies are about. What is their target audience? Well, most Star Wars shows and movies are made for tweens and teens 12 to 14 years old. Sorry, guys. We older people are not in that demographic. The fan service thrown in are for us to connect with it. Us as in older nerds who geek out over that stuff. And I do geek out when I see it, I won't lie. But it doesn't feel as natural as the way Tony Gilroy has done it with Andor. The guy knows how to keep our old asses attentive without it being over the top with stuff from other parts of the Star Wars universe. For anyone waiting for the Millennium Falcon to show up, keep holding your breath. Yeah, I know. The saying is don't hold your breath, but I actually want them to hold their breath. Don't worry, they won't unalive themselves by holding their breath. They will just pass out and start breathing again. Maybe a bit of confusion when they wake up and a slight headache, but they will be fine. I promise. So, hold your breath. Wait for that Millennium Falcon. Tony Gilroy doesn't use the fan service the way others do because he doesn't need it and probably doesn't understand why it's used in the first place. He wants to write cohesive stories that can reach an audience with something fresh. He could also easily have made this all about Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine during this time period, but he didn't. Palpatine is mentioned but not shown, and this is genius. Tease us with the Senate room, but no Palpatine to address them. God bless, I hope I'm making this clear. Feels like I'm all over the place. That's all right. Squirrel! Sometimes I really don't know. Tony Gilroy is not J.J. Abrams, not in the slightest. He didn't approach Lucasfilm wanting to make a Star Wars show. They kind of approached him, and he basically said, well, shit, I guess so. And he's probably going to go down as one of the best writers and directors of Star Wars, other than Irvin Kershner. That guy's a beast. But he didn't write The Empire Strikes Back. That honor goes to Lawrence Kasdan. But Tony Gilroy figured out the algorithm to the hearts of Star Wars fans. Give us just enough of the things we say we want, but make the rest of it how he sees it. The guy studied human history for years. He studies psychology and real-world tyrants. He brought that knowledge to Star Wars like a manimal. Yes, I said manimal. A wasp reference. Only not perverted. If you don't know who Wasp was, don't worry about it. Blackie Lawless will forgive. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we don't need people who claim to be Star Wars super nerds to write and create Star Wars for us. Some are fine, like Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, Bryce Dallas Howard, and pretty much most of the people who worked on The Mandalorian. But Tony Gilroy has given us a new perspective on the Empire with his unique views. An empire we knew existed but kept in the back of our minds as everything they did wasn't outright shown. So much that being a part of the Empire as a stormtrooper or officer has been romanticized. Maybe now we can take the Empire seriously, all because of one man who isn't a Star Wars superfan. I would like to see what he could do with a Darth Vader series. God, that would be so dark. And me being a fan of horror and having another horror channel, that really fits in with what I like. But we'll see what happens. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. If you don't particularly like Andor, that's okay. Everything Star Wars is not for everyone. I'm more of a Mandalorian culture fan, but I like most of Star Wars in other areas, and I freaking love Andor. Now, listen to my funny ending.
Warning, make sure you clean your butt before you go to bed. I don't want you to get pink eye. Also, subscribe to the channel to hang out with one of the most engaging YouTubers in Star Wars community. Tired of being ignored by other Star Wars YouTubers? Well, that won't likely happen here. I love you. So, push the shiny red subscribe button and make all your wildest dreams come true.
Just laugh at it, okay? It's not that serious. Until the next time, may the Force be with you, unless you suck. In that case, you're on your own with your own mediocre powers. Bye.